Be informed, be inspired. Join us for the Pregnancy, Birth and Beyond show. Tune in and listen for both modern and ancient wisdom on all things maternity, parenting and sacred women's business. Right here on the Pregnancy, Birth and Beyond show.
Welcome. Our show is coming to you from the studios of Bay FM in Byron Bay and broadcasting across Australia on the Community Radio Network. We honour a woman's right to choice, her body, her baby and their birth. We hope to inspire and inform you as sisterhood and families through the thresholds of birth and your unique journey to parenthood. We are talking gender and sexual diversity on the show today. In a Time magazine issue titled He or She, How a New Generation is Redefining the Meaning of Gender, we get a glimpse into the fluid and evolving world of gender and sexual self and societal definition. Infinite Identities is the title of the accruing article in this issue. It is a fascinating read. Around the same time, National Geographic put out their gender issue, Gender Revolution, with a full, to date, glossary of terms, the various studies available on gender and a quick guide to helping families discuss gender. The spectrum upon which sexuality and gender are defined is fascinating and comprehensive. More importantly, understanding it is the doorway for more compassion and less judgment, and our newest generation is leading the way. So let's get into it. I'm Annalie Atier and this is the Pregnancy, Birth and Beyond show. So, Gender 101 on the show today with Gopi Lev and myself, and beautiful guest Gopi has recently joined our team. I've just been thinking as I was reading that we honour a woman's right to choice. Perhaps now that we are talking gender and we have a beautiful new member of our team who is a queer femme based in the Northern Rivers. She's passionate about feminism, art and pursuit of justice and equality for all. She's also our consultant on sexual and gender diversity and assists in making the space and content more inclusive for all. So perhaps we should start with our opening billboard. But we will talk about that probably a little bit later.
Yeah,
but yeah, so. It's an interesting just having you in the studio. I've never thought about it before, but we're on a woman's right to choice. That's because we're all women here on the show, but actually some people might be giving birth, but they don't see themselves necessarily as a woman. But we'll go a little bit more into that later on. And so Gopi has joined our team as alongside with another woman who's Michal Schiff, who's an epidemiologist and dedicated researcher and also a mother of 3. And Gopi is here really to support and consult us on all matters gender and gender diversity, really, and making sure that our content is really clean and respects everybody, really. So thank you, Gopi, for coming and joining us.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, I'm so excited, actually. This is a really important topic and one that I feel that we haven't really touched upon a lot on our show.
Yep.
And I'm hearing more and more about it and feeling that we really just want to make sure that we're talking the right talk and that we're addressing all the really important issues, because this one is huge, I think. It's huge.
Yeah, it's massive. And now with the rise in awareness around gender diversity, more and more people have become comfortable to identify more authentically with their expression of gender and their experience of gender. And with that comes a very necessary shift in language and a very necessary shift in how we see and approach the matter of gender throughout so many different avenues, but language being probably one of the most pressing in terms of day-to-day interactions. I have a pretty vested interest in this, and although I am not gender diverse, my partner is, and we have a lot of conversation around it, and the matter of reproductive health is also really close to our hearts because we do want to have children one day, and the way that those two interact and the way that they're linked comes up again and again for us in a range of different issues. So I'm really happy to be here today.
I'm so happy that you're here and that I know that you have so much insight into this into this topic, and it's why we've asked you to join, because we are aware to a certain degree, but we're actually the three women that run this show are and manage most of the day-to-day and ins and outs and interviews and researching and everything. We're women with children married to men, so it's really quite a narrow frame to be coming from, considering that there's so many other people with different the ways that they do things, and we're aware of that to a certain extent. I think we really take a lot of care in terms of general diversity, so we cover lots and different varied topics, but when it comes to gender diversity specifically, we don't have as much understanding and knowledge as we would like to, and I'm so excited that you've joined, and you've also come to a little bit shed some light on what this all means, because I think even for me that I was, I'd heard about it and done lots of research, but truly it wasn't until we sat down and spoke a few times that I realized how little I know and understand and about what's really important also within that discussion. Not just knowing it is not enough. Yeah.
Well, I think that you've taken a really wonderful first step, you and the rest of the women who run this show, in raising your awareness as to the limitations of the scope of your own experience. And we all have different limitations that lie in different areas. And I think one of the most beautiful kind of pursuits of any sort of intersectional social justice is kind of breaking those barriers down and learning how to listen and learning how to share when it's appropriate and learning when to take in when it's appropriate. And I think that this is in itself a really wonderful beginning for the show and for the future of the content that you produce, and I think that you've done a wonderful thing here. Before I start, I would really like to acknowledge the fact that I do hold a lot of privilege as a cisgendered woman. We will get into the glossary of terms later on, and I would really like to iterate just how profoundly important all of the work has been from transgender and genderqueer activists and writers has been. And I really wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the work that they put out into the world and for the just endless labor that they perform to kind of raise the societal awareness. So I think that that's a really valid and important thing to kind of mention. And I have an understanding of these experiences, but also only as an outsider. So I'm going to be sharing perspectives from a privileged place, trying to kind of kind of dilute some of the oppression that they might feel on a day-to-day basis that I could be responsible for changing. But I really just want to open it up that if there are any transgender or genderqueer activists out there, or writers or people in general that are listening to this show, please don't, hesitate to write in with any feedback or anything that you'd like to be included or anything you'd like to hear about on the show in the future.
And if you do want to do that, our email is hello@pbbmedia.org. So HELLO at P for Peter, B for Bob, media.org. So please, we welcome your comments and ideas and thoughts.
Yes, absolutely. And I think I'm just going to be sharing mainly from my own experience and what has really helped me. And I will be sharing resources later on in the show, and as I said, a glossary of different terms and examples of how we can do better, to uplift and amplify the voices of those who have been silenced and have faced a lot of violence throughout the years and have contributed endlessly to equality, not just for the queer community, but for most marginalized groups through history.
So whether or not it impacts you directly, or even if you know somebody or not, you might not even know that you know somebody. Yeah. So I think that's really important to start just being conscious of that in your world, and many people will be in some contact with somebody who doesn't necessarily identify with what has been considered just the regular gender terms so far. And and we are expanding, and there's so much to learn.
So far, you see the sky, you cry, you don't know why. It's joy, it's happiness, the rainbow makes you feel high. So far, you see the sky, the rainbow makes you feel high, high. So far, you see the sky, you cry, you don't know why.
So we're with Gopi Lev today. I'm Annalie Attia, and Gopi is our newest addition to the team, to the Pregnancy, Birth and Beyond team. She's a gorgeous queer femme based in Northern Rivers. She's passionate about feminism, art, and the pursuit of justice and equality for all. So yeah, we are really happy to have her join as our consultant on all sexual and gender diversity matters, and she's assisting us in making our space, our content, much more inclusive for everybody. So hi Gopi again, thanks for joining us.
Hello, thank you again for having me.
So we had a little bit of an intro before, but now we're going to go into a bit of a definition of what this all means and what this is all about. Mm-hmm. If you want to head into explaining what gender binary means.
Yeah, so I think that is a really important place to start. The way that society functions right now, thank you to a lot of different factors such as fundamental religion and capitalism, actually, we operate on a binary, especially in regards to gender, where if a baby is born with a penis, it's a boy, and if she's born with a vagina, it's a girl. And the way that we socialize these quote-unquote boys and girls is very clear. They're very clear rules. It's very it's segmented, and it is preset by society, this script. And the binary influences so much more than what we could ever imagine. Even just the idea that only women get pregnant, which is directly relevant to the show, and that reproductive issues only affect the health of women, as opposed to a range of different folk who fall anywhere on the gender spectrum. And now, thanks to emerging science and the tireless work of genderqueer and transgender activists, we are beginning to understand that scientifically gender is actually a spectrum, and you can fall anywhere along it. And there are differences between gender identity and gender presentation, which one is how you feel, the other is how you look, and they interact differently depending on each individual's experience. Also, that gender and sexuality aren't the same thing as well, and they are both two separate things that can be combined in many different ways. It's a really nuanced and endlessly fascinating topic, and we could go so many different directions with it, but today I just thought that I would keep it as basic as possible and as kind of an intro, as to not, take us in too many directions at once. So in the dictionary, the gender binary is defined as: the gender binary, also referred to as gender binarism, is the classification of sex and gender into two distinct, opposite and disconnected forms of masculine and feminine. Gender binary is one general type of a gender system. Now, they say this because there are so many different ways of classifying gender around the world, and if you look at most ancient cultures, they have not only systems of acknowledgement, but systems of honor for those who don't fall into the binary. There are the two-spirit people from the Native American folk. There are
Finns.
A lot of indigenous cultures deeply acknowledge and honor gender diverse people throughout their traditions, and it's just really interesting that in 2017 we haven't really grasped that. It's not surprising, but it is worth, I think, picking up the slack now. And you can really see how we socialize children into the binary from a very young age. We tell little girls that they are subservient and that they are pretty and that they wear pink, and they're interested in tea parties and dollies, and boys that they're interested in trucks and they wear blue, and they're allowed to get dirty and they're allowed to be boisterous and outgoing and almost violent sometimes, because they're little boys and boys will be boys. And it's really interesting because I think that a lot of people are quite resistant to the idea of kind of including a more gender neutral outlook on raising their children, which I don't really understand, because I think that you're doing your child such a favor by removing some of those constraints and letting your little boys cry and letting them learn how to cry into adulthood, and letting little girls be strong and powerful and wear what they want and cut their hair short if they want to, and to not make them prioritize their looks above everything. And it's kind of, there are so many different ways in which kind of the normalizing of heterosexuality and the gender binary interact, and we'll do probably another segment on that at a later point, because that in itself is also a really interesting topic. But these things are really worth looking into if you're a parent, and really kind of maybe expanding your worldview a bit and allowing children to sort of just be children, and to not impose this really limiting and actually harmful belief system on them, because not only is it just limiting in general and just kind of a bummer, it's also doing your kid not any favors if they are transgender, if they are genderqueer. You're actually placing more hurdles in their way to kind of get through on their journey to authentic expression. And